Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. I will wait a few more minutes to make sure that everybody who's subscribed is actually joined. Okay, let's get started. Good morning again. Thanks everybody for joining this short webinar. We have 30 minutes. In those 30 minutes, I will take you through the most obvious AI features within ForMe that were added the last month or so. First of all, short introduction. Why am I doing this webinar? I am Frank Thiel. 2 weeks ago, I was still employed by ForMe, so I was the product marketing manager there. Currently, I have my own company, and I was asked by On It Now to make sure that this webinar was taking place. So that is why I'm here. Also, I was closely involved in establishing a few of those features that I will show today. So I may have some inside knowledge that might be interesting for you as well. The biggest change that was made the last 2 weeks in terms of the AI features for me was the transfer from OpenAI to AWS Bedrock, which basically means that the data that we share, or that ForMe is sharing with AI features, is now just staying within the ForMe data structure. So your data is no longer shared with a company, OpenAI, in the US. It stays within the ForMe data center and data structure. So that means that if you are located in the US, your data will stay in the US. If you are located in the EU, your data obviously will stay within the EU. And if you happen to be in Australia, and I doubt if there's someone from Australia in this webinar, but just to be completely precise, the data in the Australian instance is also shared with the EU. So there is where the AWS Bedrock functionality is currently running. A bit of housekeeping. You might have noticed that there is a chat. I already saw a lot of people interacting in the chat. So if you have any questions during this webinar, feel free to ask them in the chat. I will try to keep track on questions, but I'm not that good in multitasking like any mail probably that is in the webinar today. And therefore, I also have Steve on board, Steve On It Now. So he will assist me with making sure that all your questions are addressed. So let's take a look at what we're actually here for. This is hopefully a quite well-known screen for you. So I will demonstrate 3 different AI features today. The first one is the Steve is not the AI agent, by the way. I saw that in the chat. Steve is one of the people working for Infovision, which is part of the On It Now group. So he is a human being and he is ready to assist you. The 3 features that I'm going to demonstrate today is first of all the AI request summary. I will start with that one. Then I will skip over to the AI supported creation of knowledge articles. And last but not least, a feature that is currently in QA available, and that is the waiting for customer AI summary. So it will be a challenge to cover them all in quite some detail in half an hour, but let's try anyway. We'll see how far we get. So the first one is, I think, also the most important one. That is the AI-driven summary of requests. We all know that complex requests can add up a quite high amount of nodes, and especially if a ticket is assigned to a different group or a different team member, that person or that team might have quite a challenge to quickly understand what the request is about. So it would be nice if AI could provide a summary of all the nodes that have been added so far in the request. And that is exactly what it is doing. So let's pull up a request in where we can see how that works. For example, this one, this is, by the way, a standard demo environment, so nothing special has been done here other than me preparing some records to make sure that I can really fully demonstrate the capabilities. So what you see is a lot of nodes, a lot of back and forth between various people, and you see that as soon as a certain threshold has been exceeded, and I will come back to that in a minute, you see that for me AI is adding a section to the notes part of the form with a nice summary of what has been discussed so far, what the request is about. So this is an audit. Someone is asking for data that is crossing over more than 10,000 records. So there's some back and forth whether or not it is really necessary and whether or not some limits on the reporting engine could be raised so that someone, the specialist who is responsible for this request, is able to come up with the required information. And you see that the Fumi AI is able to summarize the entire discussion in just a short paragraph, which is, of course, very nice. A few things you might notice is, first of all, auto-translation is active in this request. The summary is always created in the account or in the language that is selected in the account settings. So for me, is also using the auto-translation capabilities to read the notes because, for example, Bert Janssen is someone who is adding notes in German. Arizona is writing Dutch. So for me, is first using auto-translation and then AI to summarize this. And there's currently no way to translate this also back to the language of the user. So the summaries are first of all created in the account language. And second of all, they are not stored within the request because they are dynamic. So as soon as a certain node, an additional node is added, we will see that for me is automatically updating the summary as well. So this is dynamic and it is always taking into account the latest nodes that are added and also the nodes that are visible in the current account, which is an important addition. For example, I have two internal nodes added here with some confidential information. The internal node is, of course, visible in this account, but might not be shared with another account. So let's say that this request is crossing multiple accounts. It might be that the summary in another account for the same request is different based on the visibility of the various nodes. Hopefully that makes sense. So that is an important thing to be aware that this is dynamic and it is looking at internal nodes and it is taking the visibility of that of the nodes within the For Me account into consideration. Another thing is to be aware of is that when is this AI summary specific triggered? Because, for example, when I go to my inbox and I have this request, you see that this contains a quite lengthy note. Let's move this out of the way a bit. So this is a reproduction path, basically. What did the user do to come up with this specific issue? You see that there are a lot of notes already, but still there is no summary available. So the threshold that is required for me to come up with the summary is, first of all, we need at least 5 nodes. That is the first threshold. And the second one is overall, for me, needs 1000 characters or more. So if you are testing and the only thing you heard was 5 nodes, and you add, for example, 4 nodes with test 1, test 2, test 3, and so on, there will be no summary visible. You really have to have a certain body of information for me to be able to come up with a meaningful summary. So, for example, this is if we add a certain node, and let me copy paste this from my preparation notes. So let's say that this is about an issue that someone is not able to submit a certain form. So let's say that we discovered that there's a JavaScript error involved. That will be added or solved in the next sprint. So this request is added to the next sprint. I click save, and now I exceeded the number of nodes. And as soon as I do a refresh on the form, we will see in a minute that the AI summary will kick in, and it will become visible in the request. Hopefully. This is always a bit tricky, of course, in these real-time environments, but that is how it works. So we need 5 nodes or more, and at least 1000 characters in total before the AI summary wakes up. By the way, while we're at the discussion about the features, it is something you need to enable. So in the settings of a certain account, you need to check this box. That is also a change compared to the previous, the OpenAI based version of For Me Plus AI, because for that, you had to go to the App Store and install the For Me Plus AI app. That has now been removed from the App Store. If you had it installed, For Me is automatically replacing this by this checkbox being enabled. But you have to activate the feature before it becomes available in your environment. And it's not enabled by default, by the way. So that is also an important thing to be aware of. Okay, so hopefully it's quite straightforward feature. It provides a very powerful summary of the nodes, and you don't have to do or maintain or train anything. It is just looking at the information that is there, and as soon as something relevant is available for you, the summary will be updated automatically as well. Okay, let me quickly look at the notes. How does it work with grouped requests? It is looking at all the requests that are visible, so it is also looking at the group. So if you are looking at the group request and all the nodes from the group exceed the threshold, those are summarized in the group, but also in the individual record. So there's no real difference in the mechanics between those two. The next feature that I would like to cover is let me quickly go over the chat if there's something. There's also a question, is the information of the nodes reused for training the AI model? That is a very important one. The answer is no. The AI model is trained and maintained by AWS. So none of your data is being used to train any model, which might be, of course, a huge security and compliance risk if your data ends up in the end an AI-based model. So that is not the case. Also, there's no data stored anywhere else than in For Me. So it is sent to the Bedrock layer, then the summary is being retrieved, and it is only stored within the For Me database with all the encryption and security and compliance measures in place. The second feature that I would like to demonstrate is the AI-based creation of knowledge articles. Maybe it would also be good to quickly go over one of the other examples that I had. Because the AI is quite powerful in making sure that relevant information ends up in the summary, and therefore also non-relevant information is not in there. So if you add a lot of stuff to a certain request, but it is not really relevant for the summary, it is automatically being left out. But the challenge is, of course, to find such an example. So I will come back to this. I have in my notes the request number, but I have to look it up. So the second part, the second feature that I would like to show is the creation of knowledge articles. So, for example, when we look at a completed request, and let's say that doesn't really matter which one I take. So, for example, this completed request, there is what is this about? It is about the expense reporting service that seems to be not available. This is in the end the fix that was implemented, or the workaround in this case. When you want to create a knowledge article from that, again, of course, this is already existing functionality. So when you hover over the all icon, you can create a knowledge article. You see that there is a lot of information. This is quite dense instruction. So this is not the most obvious way to format your knowledge article. So as soon as you create that new knowledge article, you see that the AI is automatically suggesting something, a new information that could be added to the title. You can, by the way, accept suggestions just by clicking on the arrow icon. And you see that this note is now nicely formatted into 5 steps. It is, of course, way more accessible and readable compared to just copying over the note. That is one. The second is that it takes the entire context of the request into account. So it is not only looking at the text in the note, but it is also looking at things like to which service was it linked and what are the other notes saying as well. So it is much more than just an AI reshuffle of the information that you see in the note that you use to trigger the creation of the knowledge article, but it looks at all the nodes and also at the context of the request. So this is, of course, a very powerful thing. And as always, you can still accept the suggestion and then make your corrections in here as well. So it is not a black or white thing. You don't have to either accept or decline the suggestion. You can accept and then still modify. Okay, so this is again, this is of course really powerful, and one of the things that is coming up in the future is that this capability will be available for existing knowledge articles as well. So as soon as you open up an existing knowledge article, the AI will do the same. Currently, it is only available for the creation of brand new knowledge articles. So that is the second feature. Let me see in the chat if there's anything new to be. Okay, I see that Steve is keeping up with all the questions that are in there, which is good. Will the knowledge article suggestion also take images that were in the request? I don't think it does, but to be honest, I don't know. But we can do a quick test after this webinar and let you know. I think currently it is purely text-based because the model that is being used is also a large language model, which only takes text into account. The third, so by the way, for this, you don't have to configure anything other than enabling the For Me Plus AI settings in the settings of your account. So there's no specific preparation necessary for this. There actually is for the third feature that I would like to cover. That is the waiting for customer reminder. As you probably know, a few weeks ago, for me, added the waiting for customer follow-ups. So this is the first thing you have to do, actually. You have to define a certain follow-up schedule. You can create as many as you want to. I created one that I called inpatient version, which is basically waiting for 1 day. So you put a request on waiting for customer, and after 1 business day, the AI reminder is being sent, and you can also determine whether or not the request should be auto-completed. Now, this is, of course, a bit harsh, right? We remind someone and then immediately complete the request. But you can add as many notification rules as you want to. So, for example, you can say after 1 day, send a reminder, and then after 2 days, send a reminder, and after 3 days, send a reminder again. And if you check this checkbox, then the auto completion only takes place after 3 days. So that is how that works. So to use this feature, you first need to define at least one follow-up schedule. And as soon as that is the case, then the next step is to link this follow-up schedule in a certain service offering. So when you go to service offerings, doesn't matter which one you take, of course, you will decide for yourself, and you see that there in the service offering, there is a follow-up field, and here you can select one, or you can select only one, but you can of course choose from all the follow-up schedules that you created previously. So my inpatient version, and also in my case the standard 1 and 5 days, it's currently only looking at business days according to the calendar that is selected in the service hours. So if you have here a 24/7 schedule, then business days is just every day, right? Then 1 business day is just tomorrow, and exactly at the same time. So that is the second step that you have to make, and then when you create a request for which this service offering is used in the SLA that is applicable to that request, then the reminders will be sent according to this follow-up schedule. So that is the second step that you have to take, and unfortunately, or maybe luckily, there's even another step that you have to take when you go to the email templates. There is a follow-up template, so this one, that was already there. So it is that was based because that follow-up feature has been available for a few weeks already. And when you modify this template, you can add in the AI suggest placeholder, and the AI suggest placeholder will then contain actually an explanation of what are we waiting for from this requester. And that is, of course, the powerful thing, because a generic reminder will just say, well, we're waiting for you for, solving request number 1, 2, 3, 4. If someone has a lot of requests open, he or she will probably not know what this request is about. So that person is then expected to go to self-service or the specialist console to look up the request and to see what was actually requested from them. In terms of AI, we will see it is actually really translated into what are we waiting for. Now, of course, I'm not going to wait 1 day before being able to show you what this does. So I will go back to my inbox. This is, for example, an example. Everything that is waiting for customer for a few days in my demo environment has at least one of those reminders being sent. Let's take this one. This is waiting for me. So this, and I'm logged in as Howard Tanner, so this person, so I was also the requester. I asked for the installation of a certain monitoring agent on a server. Alan Brown responded, yeah, but we are out of licenses for the monitoring tool, so we could reassign a license from another server. Do I have a suggestion from which server we can take the license and put it on this machine. I didn't respond within a day, and I had my impatient schedule active. So of course the AI for me will send an email containing the AI summary that is also visible in the audit trail. So that is the most easy way to show you this. You have to go to show all in the audit trail, and here you see that there's a notification sent in this case to Howard Tenner. So you see that the waiting for customer follow-up, you know which template is being used. The AI suggested content is please let the specialist know which existing monitoring license could be reassigned from another server. So it is exactly telling me what is Ellen in this case waiting for, what was the request about. It is indeed understanding that we are looking for the reassignment of a certain license from another machine. It is also naming the machine. So this is of course way more useful than just a generic reminder. We are waiting for something. And this again works as soon as you did the preparations automatically based on the follow-up schedule that you defined. If the requester is not a person, it might also be a team, right? If you forward, for example, a request to a supplier, and that supplier then puts the request on waiting for, then the request is returned to the previous step, and then it might be assigned to an entire team instead of just an individual. Then it works exactly the same, but in those cases, all the members of the team will receive the reminder. So let's see if I can find my example here. It was something about slow internet. I think it was this one. Yeah. So this one was, if we look at the affected SLAs, we see that GlobalNet was asked to look into this problem. So it was an issue with slow internet. It was forwarded to the network provider of our company. They are asking, is it only slow for you? That is, of course, the question is meant for Steve Jones because that is the requester. But because it was forwarded, and then put on waiting for customer in their account, the request was returned to, in this case, the network team of the operations team, in this case, of our company. And if we look at the audit trail for this request, again, go to show all. By the way, we see here GlobalNet stopped its SLA clock, so we know that the request is on waiting for customer on their end. And that is why it was reassigned to operations in this case. And if we go to show all, we see here again the AI text. So what is it waiting for? But you see in this case that it was sent to a lot more people than just the requester. And that is because the requester in this case, one step back in the SLA hierarchy, is a team rather than an individual. So in those cases, you might see that the AI or the follow-up with the AI content is set to multiple people rather than just one person. Okay, let me quickly see if there are any other questions. Can you connect the waiting for customer feature also to a category of requests? No, currently not. Currently, it is only based on the service offering. So as soon as that service offering is used in the SLA, it doesn't really matter what the priority is. It is currently based on on an SLA basis, and it doesn't take the impact of the incident into account, which might be an interesting addition because, of course, I can imagine that for urgent things, you might want to have a different follow-up schedule compared to non-urgent things. So that might be a great RFC to put forward for me. So we have 1 minute left. Let me quickly see, because of course I'm a bit annoyed about the example that I was looking for. Yeah, so it was this one. For example, someone is adding a certain troubleshooting guide in the middle of the request. So this, of course, contains a ton of information, which might pollute your summary. And also, someone made a few jokes about, you are nominated for the Employee of the Week because you provided this very detailed troubleshooting guide. And when you look at the request, you see the only thing that was summarized is that Ender Elkin, in this case, provided detailed troubleshooting guide. So it doesn't include anything from that troubleshooting guide itself, and therefore, polluting or making the AI summary more complex. And also, just the small joke is included in the summary. But again, if those discussions, those jokes follow up and go on and take a considerable amount of notes, it will not appear additionally in the summary. So it is a very intelligent way of summarizing all these notes, and it is also taking into account what is important for this request and what isn't. And with that, I think we're through. So hopefully this was useful. If you have any remaining open questions, of course, feel free to reach out to either Joost IT or Infravision. Thanks again for joining this short webinar, and hope to see you again soon somewhere. Thank you. Have a nice day and have a great weekend.